Gupta. I'm the CEO and founder of Knowlarity Communications. As Ashish mentioned, that this is my second startup. Most of you guys, I think, somewhat associated, either associated with startups or running your own startups or trying to start your own company. So what I'm going to do is talk about a little bit my background, so you can understand my choices, and talk about my first venture. It's actually started in 2004 in Bangalore, in Malaysia, for 1.5 years. Tried working on it, and then my second company, Knowlarity, that I'm representing today. So along the way, I'll talk about the lessons that I learned, and some of the lessons were easy to learn, some of the lessons were difficult, very painful, and I'm hoping that you learn from my experience and not go through the more painful lessons that I learned. Very quickly about my background, I'm IIT Kanpur 2000 batch, computer science degree graduate. After that, like a lot of brain drain that happens in IIT, I also went to US. But along the way, also visited Australia and Europe, and then worked 3 years in US, and then I came back to Bangalore in 2004 to start my first company called Inventica. It was a real estate brokerage company. So basically, apartment search on internet, Magic Bricks, 99 acres, housing.com, Conpro that you see today. Tried to start in 2004. Right idea, but in 1.5 years, all the savings that I had, $50,000, ran out of them. There's nothing left. Went back to US, did my MBA. I had pledged myself that I'll never start another company again. But 2 years in MBA school, and after 2 years working for a vacation company in US, working for large clients, my resolve broke. I need to go and start another company again. And 2009 came back to India to start Knowlarity. This is a little bit of my context of where we are from 2009 to 2014. 5 years have been building Knowlarity. I had a whole bunch of learnings in my first startup. The idea was really good. If you look at, I was in 2004 when I came back to India. There was this lot of idealism in me that I will go and start my own company. Just because I understood in US how to build a product, I thought I could build my own company, and I was wrong. I think the very first and very important learning here is, just because you know how to build up a product, you cannot say that you know how to build up a business. Building up a business requires knowing how to build up a product, knowing how to build up a team, knowing how to pull together capital, which is venture capital, to be able to package your idea for the investors, knowing how to lead a team, because when you build up a team, you're going to have all kind of problems, and being able to sell, of course, and being able to iterate when you know the first time all your assumptions most probably are going to be wrong. So they will be 80% right. You have to be able to work very hard in making those things, those ideas work. But if something is not going right, you need to be able to immediately be able to step back and say why it is not working, evaluate it and iterate. And it did really, I went through many of these iterations in my first startup, and had all these learnings. And at the end, 1.5 years, was not able to raise fund. I can say part of the reason was that it was 2004. .com bust had happened in US, and Indian VCs were not willing to put any money. So in spite of having very good idea, I was not able to raise any fund. And if you don't have raised fund, your team, hard-working team, also after some time kind of goes away because you cannot pay salaries. I think the business model that I had also didn't work out. Instead of having a commission basis, commission that the current real estate, web-based real estate companies model follow, I was trying to get 1/3 cut in the real estate commission that real estate broker made. Didn't really work out. But anyway, the point was, there was a whole bunch of other things that were needed to make this company a success. I did not have those things. 1.5 years passed, ran out of all my savings. I remember I had $40,000, $2,000 left at the end of it. And I says, well, I gave it a good try. It's not working out, no big deal. And there's a picture of this acid bath that Joe made for me. and I was just kind of describe like how it felt, and it was literally like you come to this exercise of trying to build up a company with all the clothes, and you know you have flesh on your body, and you go this experience and literally a skeleton come out, right? Literally all the flesh and everything is melted away. The most solid thing in you is left out. Everything else goes away. All the idealism, all the expectation about how the world should behave when you go and try to do something big, right? When you're in college, when you go and try to do something big, your parents, your teachers, everybody support you. When you go and try to sell a product in the real estate market, the broker is going to say, well, what will it do for me? Why don't you give this product to me for free? So it's this almost like a easy path that we go through. Literally the most hardcore things are left. And I think that was being very, very practical. If you want to dream, well, you can be whatever you want to be. But if you want to do something real, you need to know how to engage reality. And I think that was very important learning for me. That means having capital, having a team that can execute, and having support to you so that you can keep on trying what you're trying to do for a long time without having to worry about how you're going to feed yourself. So being very practical, I think that is big learning that I had from my first field venture, and I think it's a difficult learning, very, very difficult learning, but it's a very important one, because unless you kind of know the hard real truth, you cannot move things in real life. You have to have all this fluff go away, and it's very comforting things many times to have fluff around you, but then things don't move. So that is first learning. So well, as I said that I went back to US, I had a cushy job with McKinsey & Company as a consultant, and basically McKinsey & Company is like cushiest thing you can do in terms of being detached from reality. So if Fortune 50 companies, you develop their strategies, blue sky strategy. You're not responsible for execution. So as far away as you can be, at the end of the study, you create a document that the CEO is supposed to read and decide the next course of action. And I can also work for Microsoft. But I think what ended up happening, and many of the people who have worked for large corporations will realize that things are so bad in large corporations. Things are so bad that it just kind of start building up confidence in me again. I said, well, these guys are so bad inside Fortune 50 companies, and still they are thriving. So how bad can I do? Right? I mean, if the company is so bad, like I can give it another try. I think that just gave me another jolt of confidence. And then I think by that time I had also healed. Right? There was the bone again. The flesh has started appearing. I was wearing good clothes. I had energy. I had money in my bank account. I think the life in McKinsey was, even though great learning experience, but I was looking for that independence and being able to build something again. So I said, okay, well, but I need to learn from my first experience. So I'm going to go and try to build up a $1 billion company. But what is the safest $1 billion idea that I can think of? And Knowlarity was literally the safest $1 billion idea that I come up with at that time. The idea was that consumer telephony has happened in India. And if the consumer telephony has happened, every consumer has telephone, they are going to call businesses. So business telephony is a derivative market, enterprise telephony is a derivative market, because businesses need some kind of more reform, a better telephone to be able to handle all this telephone calls they are receiving, which 5 years back they did not, because nobody had telephones. Like, you know, I don't know how many of you guys remember waiting in the queue for 2 years to get telephone from BSNL and MTN. So now everybody had telephone and they were calling businesses. So I thought enterprise telephone is going to happen. And even I was sitting in US, New York doing studies and all over the world. I knew that enterprise telephony existed in other markets. The US market Ring Center was building up enterprise telephony, Twilio was building up enterprise telephony. So I thought it is bound to happen. This industry is going to come up. That was one. So I thought this was going to happen and we can go there and then we just wait. Time is on our side. If it doesn't happen immediately, we'll just wait. Right. Second thing is enterprises are very rational. So consumer, like in India, nobody pays anything. You guys use Gmail, Facebook, WhatsApp, and you don't pay a dime. It's very difficult to get you guys to pay as a consumer. But if a business, if you go to a business and help them make 10,000 rupees more, they'll give you 1,000 rupees. They're rational. There's money going back and forth, and I thought, I'm a very rational guy, so I should do something enterprise. And of course, if you look at how new ventures are started by private equity companies or backed by private equity company, the big idea is that go where where the water is going up, like industry is going up, and telecom was like growing 100%. So if you do in an industry which is already growing up, even if you're like totally shitty, absolutely worthless company, still you'll go, right? So I thought, even if I'm like super worthless, if I do in telecom and this industry is coming up, it's going to be a big industry, let me give it a try. Hopefully, something good will happen. And that is how I thought this was the safest $1 billion idea that I can come up with when I started. So I came back to India. Another thing that I did was I didn't make a product before selling it. I started selling it before I made it. So I came to India and I started trying to sell enterprise telephony through companies like TimesJob and Naukri and all of these companies, while I didn't have the platform, and I was able to sell. So that way, another way, I verified, try to make it safe. That I can, if I make it, it will sell. I think that is another learning for you guys. I see a lot of ideas which are which I feel are transactional ideas, or what I call popcorn ideas. I think popcorn is a bad term, but it's popcorn idea in the sense it is not hinged to something groundbreaking happening in the industry. The question you should ask when you're working on this idea is, what is the big thing that is going to lift you up? Because trying to build up a company, the whole world is trying to bring you down. Everything will go wrong. There's just some macro driver that is trying to build up, that has created the industry, that is trying to lift you up. One of the reasons e-commerce has happened because of middle class in India, and the confidence that venture capitalists had by seeing e-commerce success in China. Right? There's capital and then there's customers. You need to, and there are a lot of macro problems that India have. You're talking about the routes, you're talking about the transportation, you're talking about logistics, you're talking about delivery of food. Middle class has a disposable income, they want to go and consume things. So there are things happening in India at a macro level which are creating new opportunities which did not exist 5 years back. So you need to hinge your idea to that, rather than I got this bright idea, let me do it. Because then you're on your own. You can still do Twitter, but then you're on your own. If you're sitting on a macro trend, then it will be easy for you to, in real world, like build up and find customers and build up a company. And also, when you go and raise capital and find partners and find employees, be able to justify it. So that was another big learning for me. No funding, no problem. So 2009, I think again unlucky. When I started my first company, it was .com bust. When I started my second company, it was subprime mortgage crisis. So it's like every time I'm starting a company, there is a crisis happening in the world. It is a good time to start a company because your career is not going to move much, so you might as well give it a try. But the bad thing is there's no money. Right? So venture capitalists at the time were not as excited and chasing entrepreneurs the way accelerators and VCs are chasing you guys, right? I mean, everybody wants to give you money. Anyway, so it was bad time. There was subprime mortgage crisis happened. We had no money, and we needed money. So what we did was, we kind of got lucky. So the elections were happening in Odisha, and we were able, this is Naveen Patnaik, some of you guys not able to recognize, I guess not many. But he's Chief Minister of Odisha, and he was going around in his helicopter trying to convince voters to vote him. And we went to him and he said, well, everybody has telephone. We can call everyone and say, I am Naveen Patnaik, if you vote. He said, well, that sounds good, but what are you talking about? I don't understand what you mean. So what we did was, we recorded his voice that in Oriya that I am Naveen Patnaik, give me vote. And at that time we didn't have the product. So when that I am Naveen Patnaik, give me vote in Odisha, and two guys said, and one guy kind of called up a number, and then the second guy just played the sound file and said, see, this is how it is going to play. And it looked like the call came and then says, I am Naveen Patnaik and give me input. Think about the MPV, right? Minimum viable product. So he said, no, this makes sense. So why don't you call everybody in Odisha, which is around 70 lakh people, in next 10-12 days that the election is going to be started and I cannot do any more campaigning. I said, yeah, why not? I mean, we have ready product platform and then we can quickly do it for you. But it is going to cost you money. And I said, how much money? And kind of quoted some 1.5 rupees per call or something, which 1 rupee was our profit margin, 15 paisa was. So he gave us money in like big bag, and actually it's a real, this kind of bag that we got. With loads of cash, and my co-founder, he kind of takes a flight and said, don't take flight, maybe take a train, because I don't know, you'll get caught up, like you're carrying so much cash, you're smuggling money from Odisha to Delhi. So anyway, he came, and this was a prepaid, right? So we gave telecom operator, and now we need to build up the system. I was in US and my co-founder was in India, and we kind of just get on. After McKinsey, I didn't know, kind of forgotten quite a bit of programming. So just quickly went, and I remember Perl a little bit. So I learned, refreshed my memories around Perl and started coding, and we used the screen command. I don't know, many of you developers would know, to share the screen and the code at 72 hours. We just coded to build up the first box, stress-based box, which could make phone calls, like 10,000 calls in a day. It could do. So we got 70 lakh numbers, and we loaded first 10 lakhs calls in the database and start making calls. But think about it, 10,000 calls if you make in 70 lakh database, what kind of impact it's going to make? Probability of like less than 1% anybody gets a call. So next day we get a call from his secretary that it seems that you've taken the money, but you're not making phone calls. And when the politicians tells you that you're not performing, you kind of have to listen, because they can take the money and everything else from you. So what do we do now? So we said, okay, well, we cannot scale the system that quickly. That will still take, and I was working to kind of make that one box become 10 box, but you cannot code that fast. So what we did was, we went around and got the phone number of all the journalists and the party workers. The next day loaded all, like the 7,000 of them on the system. And the next day, like everybody he knew that Naveen Patnaik was doing election campaign. And he got it down. Now your system is working, right? So it's just like everybody, like we want the news that here Naveen Patnaik is calling people and doing election campaign using this advanced technology where he can call like millions of people. And then by the time, of course, we built up a system. From 1 it became 10, and there were crashes. But in next 10 days, we were able to make phone calls to every single person. And the election was over in one. And we were kind of considering, what if he loses, right? Maybe he would take the money back, right? And we don't have the money to give him back. And we kept keeping the money so that we can give him some money back, so that he doesn't kill us. And he won. So oh wow, this all money is ours now. But then I thought, I was thinking maybe starting a SaaS model. So can I make like SaaS, like every year maybe he can reach out to his, how can I repeat? I already have the system. So once he won the election, we went back to him and I said, you know what, you won the election because you are such a progressive politician, right? He said, yes, that's true. I said, that's the politicians go, they win the election, they never come back into people, right? After 5 years, you're again going to come back and say, give me more. But you're not like that. Of course, he's not like that. He said, you need to send a thank you note, okay, for helping you win the election. And then he sent a thank you note. So we get another 70 lakh rupees. There should have been another big bag of money. And then I thought, now this is working. So maybe I tell him that like every Holi, Diwali, right? He should send that one he did not buy. But we made like 2 bags. Even though we didn't get like any VC funding, but we made like 1.5 crore rupees of cash, real cash, like real cash. And we use that money to build up the platform. The learning here is, I think you have to go to fundamentals. You need money to build up the platform, right? Otherwise you're going to dwindle and not be able to hire people. And there are various ways you can make money, and it doesn't have to be, it can be one-time activity as well, right? Just be creative, and many times you can find out ways to get money for your startup. A lot of our customers were interested in giving us money, because even though they were like real estate brokers and dons and kind of people, so we didn't take money from them. But I think if push had come to shove, probably we've taken money from them as well just to survive. So be flexible. Don't be rigid. You need money. If you need money, if you need team members, right? If you need resources, go figure out a way, even through non-traditional means. Third is process for everything. So this is actually I learned about Knowlarity, about the way I operated from one of the Quora posts that one of the employees made on Quora. The comment that they made was Knowlarity was a big company since the beginning. I had asked my team to put a picture of a kid with suits and a tie, just to represent how we were when we were young. So I think probably consulting background and very clear idea that we wanted to build up a safest $1 billion company out of India. So of course, a $1 billion company will have tens of thousands of customers. So you need processes and designations. So even when we started, like 5 people, we had all those processes and systems, and it looked kind of, in the beginning employees would say like, this looks stupid, right? Really, why, there are 2 people and one is going to write an email and the second is going to respond in this specific way. This is stupid, but it was very useful, because as we grew, we did not have to change the culture. It was right in the beginning we had been very, very process oriented, and if you are building up if you have a very clear idea about how you're trying to build up a company, what kind of company you're trying to build up, and you have clear understanding of the opportunity and how you go about executing it, I think process is important. And many times what I've seen is you start up in the beginning because there's so much pressure to just get the output. Process like totally ignored, and it's understandable. Many times you want an output, you don't want to worry about the process. But if you just keep it in your mind and just nudge people in that direction, it will help you tremendously later. The biggest problem comes when you're trying to scale and your old way of working and the culture and the people, they just don't operate that way, and you have like confusion everywhere. Process is important if you're trying to build up a great company. Embrace change. I think that is next learning. This is around Series A, when we were about to die. That money that we raised, that we got from politician, eventually ran out, actually faster than we thought. We thought like 1.5 crore is going to last like 2 years. It lasted like less than 1. And then we went around, raised another $2 million from angels in US, and that also we burned. And I was into June, July time period. Actually, it was May 2011, and I was looking at like, okay, now I have money till September, and I don't know where I'm going to get money from. And we were trying to sell this packaged product to SMBs. Literally, when you're trying to sell to SMBs, you listen to every whims and fantasies that they have, right? And they don't want to pay you. So literally what I call 40K car is basically they were willing to give you 40,000 rupees and they wanted to be BMW. And we were trying to make it, and our engineers were customizing the post-ADP system for them. And they keep trying, it's just not working. And there came a day and time when we had to stop hiring and then start firing so people. And I really did not have any engineers to customize. I think at that point of desperation, what I did was I reduced the prices to half. But I said, you know, I'm going to not give you all of these bells and whistles, like 4 wheels, I'm going to only give you 2. Because 2 is sufficient for you to go from point A to point B, but you'll have a scooter, right, which will do 70% of what you want at 20K price, and that worked. So I think it was a big learning, and immediately afterward, based on this thesis, we changed, and we were trying to raise fund at that time, Series A, and we were able to change our story, and we were able to raise Series A from Sequoia in January. Don't ask me how we survived between September and January without money, but we survived somehow. But I think the learning here was a lot of us from technology background, a lot of us who have very clear idea of how much value that can be delivered to the end customer. We try to deliver 100% value. The market may not be ready for it. They may be just happy with far less of a value at a much lower cost. And that happens a lot with emerging market countries such as India. People want to try out a prepaid phone, Nokia phone, before they'll buy a feature phone and a smartphone. If you try to give them a smartphone right away, with the postpaid plan, they'll not take it. So simplify things, simplify communication, simplify products, simplify your sales pitch. Give them something that they absolutely need at a very good price, rather than give them all the bunch of things that they need at a price that they will ask that you cannot beat. So I see over-engineering in many of the products. Don't over-engineer the product. I learned by, I guess, probably wasted probably $1 million of my money trying to doing this customization, getting of the product, and the lost time that could have been saved. I almost did not have Series A. You would not have cloud telephony if we had not been succeeded. Literally no funding company in cloud telephony would have gotten funding. And today we are a 5-year-old company. We just are celebrating our 5th anniversary. We are 450 people currently in the company. We started this industry, that idea that consumer telephony will lead to enterprise telephony turned out to be true. 2 years, nobody listened, but afterward, everybody listened. 7,000 customers currently. We add 500 customers every month. We provide phone numbers in 65 countries. We have India, Delhi, and Bangalore office. Singapore, we are a Singaporean company now. Philippines and Dubai. The platform has evolved, can process millions of calls per hour. Got a lot of awards, helped us get our name in front of the industry. 450 employees, out of which 200 hired in the last 6 months. So, which is literally all of the Bangalore office as well. There's 100 people there. Right. So here we are, and I think it's still a long way to go. And I think there'll be a lot of learnings as we progress. I wanted to share my experience and talk about my learnings, not because I want you to do what I did, but look at it as a data point in terms of learnings that this guy went through in 2009, 2014, these kind of learnings, and see if in the current context, current environment, and some of these learnings are useful to you, and see if you can save some of the easy paths and some of the pain as you build up your companies along the way. Thank you so much.